Imagine you are overseeing the construction of this massive multi-billion-dollar international airport, and the crew you hired to paint the terminal bathrooms takes an extra 2 weeks.
Right, which nobody really cares about. The airport still opens on time.
Exactly.
Huh.
But if the engineering team pouring the concrete for the main runway gets delayed by like a single afternoon, everything gets pushed back.
Yeah.
The grand opening, the ribbon cutting, the flights, all of it.
Yeah, it is the exact mathematical difference between the tasks that actually dictate your reality and the tasks that are just, noise.
And if you're listening to this right now, I mean, you might not be building an airport, but you are absolutely juggling a massive, chaotic workflow.
Oh, definitely.
You're trying to figure out which of your tasks are the runway and which ones are just the bathroom paint. So today we are doing a deep dive into the ultimate foundational toolkit for managing literally anything.
From a massive corporate restructuring all the way down to your own insanely busy schedule.
Right. And we're pulling this from a stack of academic excerpts from a managerial processes manual, specifically focusing on two major concepts: controlling and motivation.
Which I know managerial processes sounds incredibly dry.
It's dry.
But the concepts we're going to extract from this manual are basically cheat codes. They cut right through all the operational muddy waters.
Yeah, we are entirely skipping the jargon today. We're going straight after the mechanisms, the actual how-to of keeping a complex system from just falling apart.
Yeah.
But to do that, the text makes it very clear that we have to confront the C word first.
Control.
Control. Okay, let's unpack this, because when I hear the word control, my brain immediately goes to a negative place.
Most people's do, yeah.
Right. I think of a micromanager, a boss just hovering over my shoulder, looking for mistakes just to punish someone.
Yeah.
But the manual insists that managerial control is a, quote, positive approach.
It does.
And it says its essence lies in pointing out weaknesses to prevent reoccurrence. And I am really struggling with that. Like, how is actively hunting for errors a positive approach?
What's fascinating here is that you really have to look at the whole timeline of management. So classical theorists view the management cycle as this strict sequence. You plan, you organize, you direct, and finally, you control.
Okay.
So control isn't this punishment layered on top of the work. It's just the final link that brings the cycle full circle. It's purely a mechanism to measure an activity to ensure that the actual events conform to the plans you already made.
Right, but if I'm pointing out an error, I mean, the mistake has already happened, the budget is blown, the deadline is missed.
Exactly. You cannot unspend the budget. You can't turn back the clock. And that is exactly why control is defined as a continuous learning mechanism.
Oh, I see.
Because you can't change the past. Managerial control is entirely forward-looking.
Yeah.
Verify conformity, and you point out a weakness specifically to adjust the system so you don't miss the next deadline.
Got it.
It's a feedback loop. It's designed purely to ensure your future actions meet your goals. So it's a tool for calibration, not a stick to beat your team with.
That makes a lot of sense. If you view it as like a navigation system recalibrating a route, it completely removes the ego from it.
Exactly.
It stops being about who is to blame and starts being about how we steer the ship.
Yeah.
So if we accept this premise that control is a forward-looking learning mechanism, how do we actually build one? Because the manual lays out 5 specific steps for this process.
Right. So step 1 is the establishment of standards. Step 2 is the measurement of actual performance. Step 3 is comparison. Step 4 is taking corrective action. And step 5 is feedback.
Okay, I want to stop at step 1 for a second. Establishing standards.
Sure.
Because the text divides these into tangible and intangible standards. And I think this is where things instantly derail for people in the real world. Tangible standards are obvious. You know, it's the speedometer on your car. It's hitting $100,000 in sales. It's producing 500 units.
Very easy to track.
Exactly. But intangible standards. The text lists things like employee job satisfaction or brand ranking. Trying to measure job satisfaction feels like trying to measure the vibe of a room. It's tricky. How do you control an intangible standard?
It is tricky. You essentially have to find a proxy metric that you can actually observe. But to really grasp how universal these 5 steps are, the text offers this brilliant grounding exercise.
Well, the Kirana store test.
Yes. It suggests leaving the corporate high-rise and going out to observe the owner of a small roadside Kirana store.
For those who might not know, that's like a tiny local provision or medical shop, right?
Yeah, exactly. A shop with maybe 2 to 5 employees. Because the mechanics of control there are identical to a Fortune 500 company. They're just stripped of all that corporate noise.
Okay, so let's walk through the steps with the shop owner.
Yeah.
Step 1, he establishes a standard, like I need to sell 50 loaves of bread a day to break even.
Perfect. Step 2, at the end of the day, he measures actual performance. He counts the cash register, and he counts the leftover bread.
Step 3, comparison. He looks at a standard of 50, and he compares it to his actual sales, which let's say are 40 loaves.
Exactly. He's 10 loaves short, and this triggers step 4, which is taking corrective action. He has to ask why performance didn't meet the standard.
Right.
Maybe the bread is hidden behind the counter, so the corrective action is physically moving the bread display up to the front window.
Which brings us to the crucial 5th step, feedback.
Feedback is where the entire system gets its power. The next day, he measures again. If the feedback is positive, say, moving the display worked and he sold 60 loaves well, it confirms the standard is met. He can aim higher next time.
But if the feedback is negative?
Then it forces a much deeper corrective action. He might have to simplify his inventory or change suppliers or redefine his people management practices.
It's just a relentless, continuous loop. And if you're a freelancer listening to this, I mean, you can apply that exact cure on a store loop to your own week.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Standard. I need to write 2,000 words a day. Measurement. I only wrote 500. Comparison. I'm 1,500 short. Corrective action. I realize my phone is distracting me, so I lock it in another room. Feedback. Did my word count actually go up the next day?
Precisely. But here's the catch. Understanding those 5 steps is completely useless if you apply them at the wrong time.
Yeah.
We have to shift from the how of control to the when.
Right, because the text breaks the timing of control down into 3 distinct timelines. You have feed-forward, concurrent, and feedback. Let's dissect these because I think people intuitively use one but completely ignore the other 2.
Definitely.
So feed-forward controls happen before operations even begin. The entire goal is to prevent anticipated problems.
Think of it like routine automobile maintenance. You change the oil before the engine seizes. Or in a business context, it's standard cost control. You check the fluctuating price of raw materials before you commit to a massive production run.
You're controlling the environment before the action even starts. Then you have concurrent controls. These happen during the process. The text mentions direct supervision while someone is working, but it also uses the example of a computer program to alert you like an error beep when you've entered a wrong command.
Yes, the computer beep.
And here's where it gets really interesting because I need you to clarify something for me. I was a bit confused reading that. If the computer beeps at me, it means I already hit the wrong key. The mistake happened. So why isn't that a feedback control or a detective control?
It's a really great question, but you have to think about the ultimate goal of the action. You haven't submitted the final document yet. You're still in the process of typing it.
Okay.
So a concurrent control acts as a steering or guiding mechanism while the overall event is still unfolding. Think of it like the lane assist feature in a modern car.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If you drift over the yellow line, the steering wheel vibrates and nudges you back. The drift happened, yes, but the car is still in motion, and the control mechanism corrects you before the actual crash.
Ah, I see. So the lane assist nudges you while you're driving, whereas a feedback control is the airbag deploying after the crash is already over.
That is the perfect analogy. Feedback controls happen after the entire activity is complete. It's the weekly or monthly or quarterly financial reports. The event is over, the crash happened, the race was won. You are reviewing the final results entirely to guide future planning.
This maps perfectly onto how the manual categorizes an organization's internal controls, preventive versus detective.
Exactly.
Preventive controls are your feed-forward mechanisms. You require pre-approval for a travel budget, or you mandate a password to access a server. You stop the error before it can physically occur.
And then detective controls are your feedback mechanisms. They detect errors post-transaction. You do a physical inventory count of the warehouse at the end of the year to see what was stolen. Or you review a department's budget expenditures after the quarter closes.
Okay, so to actually be a manager who isn't just reacting to airbags deploying, to actively use feed-forward and concurrent controls, you need specific instruments.
You need a toolkit.
Right. The text provides a literal manager's toolkit designed to navigate timelines and budgets. And I really want to get into the weeds on these. It starts with the Gantt chart.
The Gantt chart is visually very simple, but it's incredibly effective for standard projects. It plots the steps of a process against the expected time it will take to complete them. It's just a horizontal bar chart.
So at a single glance, you can see if task A is ahead of schedule, on time, or falling behind.
Right. It's great for time. But for financial control, the text moves to break-even analysis.
Which is essentially finding the mathematical sweet spot of your business.
Exactly. It examines the relationship between your fixed costs, like the rent for your office space, which doesn't change, and your variable costs, like the raw materials, which go up the more you produce. And then it compares that to the price you charge.
And it calculates the exact moment where your total revenue equals your total cost. The precise point where you stop bleeding money and start making a profit.
And it's a vital feed-forward control because it lets you run simulations. You can ask, what if our supplier raises material costs by 10%? How many more units do we have to sell just to break even?
It lets you see the future before it happens. I love that. But then the text introduces a budgetary control tool that I honestly have to push back on a little bit.
Oh, zero-based budgeting.
Yes, zero-based budgeting. Instead of taking last year's budget and adjusting it, zero-based budgeting requires that the budget is prepared from absolute scratch, as if it were the organization's very first day of existence. The manual says every single activity requires minute scrutiny and justification to continue.
It does. Every single dollar must be defended.
But imagine being a project manager and having to justify your entire existence every single fiscal cycle. The text says it requires minute scrutiny. Honestly, starting from scratch every single time sounds absolutely exhausting and really expensive for an organization. Why not just take last year's spreadsheet, add 4% for inflation, and get back to work? Why do it?
Because taking last year's spreadsheet and adding 4% is exactly how you institutionalize waste. Let's say last year, your department paid $20,000 for a software subscription that it turns out nobody on the team actually uses.
Oh, okay.
If you just rolled the budget over, you just added 4% to a completely useless expense. You are now paying $20,800 for nothing.
Right, that's just pure corporate bloat.
Massive corporate bloat. Zero-based budgeting forces you to ask, if we didn't already have this software, would we buy it today? If the answer is no, it gets cut. Yes, it is a heavy-duty, exhausting detective control. It takes time.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is the only mechanism powerful enough to clean house and ensure resources are actually tied to current goals, not just historical habits.
Okay, fair enough. You've convinced me. The pain is the point. It forces justification. But what if the problem isn't the budget? What if the problem is just the sheer, overwhelming complexity of the project timeline?
Right, like the airport.
Exactly. The text introduces two major acronyms for complex one-time projects, PERT and CPM. Let's break those down.
So PERT stands for Program Evaluation and Review Technique, and CPM is the critical path method. These are for massive undertakings. Think about building that international airport, or even just planning a massive 3-day industry conference for 10,000 people.
Let's use the conference example. How does PERT work?
PERT is all about managing uncertainty through probabilities. When you map out the hundreds of tasks needed to launch a massive conference, PERT requires you to provide 3 different time estimates for every single task. You have to estimate the optimal time, the most likely time, and the pessimistic time.
Because you can't guarantee that the keynote speaker won't miss their flight, right?
Yeah.
Or that the catering company won't get a flat tire.
Exactly. PERT embraces the chaos and gives you a weighted average. It evaluates the probabilities of time to tell you if you'll actually open the conference doors on schedule.
And then there's CPM.
Right. CPM is a different beast entirely. Where PERT is about probabilities, CPM dictates the absolute unchangeable timeline. It's about rigid dependencies.
Oh, so?
In any massive project, you have tasks that can happen at the same time and tasks that must happen sequentially. Like, you can't print the conference brochures until the keynote speakers are actually confirmed.
Right.
CPM forces you to map out every dependent sequence. The critical path is simply the specific sequence of dependent tasks that takes the absolute longest amount of time to complete.
So it dictates the minimum possible time the entire project will take.
Yes. And here's the magic of CPM. It reveals what has slack time and what doesn't. Let's say choosing the color of the cocktail napkins takes 3 days, but it's not holding up anything else.
Okay.
It has slack time. If the napkin decision takes a week, the conference still happens on time.
But booking the convention center.
Booking the convention center is on the critical path. There is 0 slack time. If the legal team takes 1 extra day to review the venue contract, the entire conference date is pushed back by 1 day. CPM is a tool that tells a manager exactly where to apply maximum ruthless control. You don't micromanage the napkins, you micromanage the venue contract.
That is incredibly clarifying. We have GAT charts for visual timelines, break-in analysis for financial sweet spots, zero-based budgets to kill bloat, and CPM to find the critical path.
The full toolkit.
But wait, we've just built this flawless, mathematically rigid CPM schedule. What happens when the lead developer or the event coordinator just doesn't feel like working today? I mean, we can't control human apathy with a chart.
And that is exactly where the text makes a massive pivot. You can have the most elegant control systems in the world, but if the human beings executing those tasks don't care, the project fails. We have to move from system control to human drive.
The human element. Yeah, the text transitions seamlessly into motivation leadership. It defines leadership as influencing people to strive willingly for group objectives. And motivation is that internal desire or feeling that actually prompts the action.
A manager can set up the lane assist, but motivation is the engine that actually moves the car forward.
Right. And the manual makes a very blunt, almost uncomfortable assertion about what fuels that engine. It says flat out, money is the primary motivation.
It does.
And it goes further, stating that the poorer the economic background of the individual, the greater the motivational value of money.
It's an unromantic truth, but from a managerial perspective, it is a fundamental lever. If you are managing a sales team, the application is obvious. You use direct incentives, commissions and bonuses linked directly to those tangible standards we talked about earlier. Sell 100 units, get a percentage of the revenue.
Because the output is easily measured.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for the rest of the company? It's easy to say, sell 10% more and get a bonus.
Yeah.
But what if I'm the IT guy making sure the servers don't crash? Or the HR rep? Or the accountant doing that zero-based budget?
Right.
How does the text say you motivate people with money when their output isn't a simple measurable number? You can't just say, do 10% more HR and get a bonus.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the text offers a truly elegant solution: profit sharing. For departments where output is intangible or difficult to measure directly, a percentage of the company's total profits can be distributed as a shared incentive.
Oh, wow. So you're essentially artificially aligning everyone's motivation.
You're breaking down the operational silos. Suddenly, the IT department has a massive vested interest in the sales team hitting their numbers. Because if the servers stay up, sales can process orders.
And if orders are processed, the company profits.
Exactly. And if the company profits, the IT guy gets a bigger bonus. It turns the intangible standard of doing a good job into a tangible shared financial outcome. You are controlling the environment by linking individual motivation to the overall success of the company.
That perfectly integrates the two halves of this manual. The control systems, the CPMs, the budgets give the organization its skeleton, but the motivation gives it a heartbeat.
Well said.
Let's quickly recap the cheat codes we just extracted. We started by completely redefining control, stripping away that micromanaging toxicity. We realized control is actually a positive, forward-looking learning mechanism meant to steer the ship, not punish the crew.
And we observed the 5 steps of control at a roadside Kirana store, proving that establishing standards, measuring, comparing, correcting, and using feedback scales from a tiny shop to a global corporation.
We looked at the critical timing of controls, using feed-forward to prevent the crash, concurrent lane assist to guide the process, and feedback airbags to review the aftermath. And we unpacked the toolkit.
Right. Finding the financial tipping point with break-even analysis, clearing bloat with zero-based budgeting, and separating the tasks that matter from the tasks that don't by finding the critical path.
And finally, we confronted the reality that all of these rigid systems rely on a very human engine, and that financial incentives, properly structured like profit sharing, are the primary way to align human desires with organizational goals.
It's all connected.
So, to you listening right now, balancing all your chaotic plates, here is your actionable step for today. Take just one concept from this deep dive and test it.
Just one.
Yeah, look at your daily routine and implement one feed-forward preventive control. Something you can do tonight, like setting out your workspace or reviewing tomorrow's schedule to guarantee a smoother morning. Or look at your biggest project and ask yourself, what is my critical path and what are just the napkins?
Apply the controls, but don't forget to evaluate what is actually motivating you to finish the path in the first place.
Which brings us to a final, somewhat provocative thought based on what the text asserts about money. The manual notes that the motivational value of money is highest for those from poorer economic backgrounds, which makes logical survival sense.
Definitely.
But if that is true, well, as an employee becomes highly successful, gets promoted, and becomes genuinely financially secure, that primary lever of motivation money must naturally weaken. It has diminishing returns.
That's a really interesting point.
Right. If that's the case, does this mean that perfectly controlled, highly successful organizations eventually break their own motivational systems simply by making their employees successful?
Wow.
And if money eventually stops working as the primary driver for your best, most secure talent, what intangible standard has to take its place to keep them engaged? Something to mull over the next time you find yourself staring into the operational muddy waters.